building a regular kind of Web2 application where you own the storage layer, right? And the storage layer that we're working with here is the chain, and it's decentralized, it's run by anyone, and we run a node and we peer with the chain. So you've got two kind of discrete parts where if you're building like a Facebook or you're building a to-do app or whatever it is, you kind of you can submit a mutation or like a post request or whatever it is, and change your data, and then synchronously get that data back, because you control that insertion and that write process. Instead, it's like you have your mutation, which is your transaction construction signing, and then you have your querying. And so we have to, like, the two kind of very distinct pieces. So you've got the it's kind of like a setup, I guess, like on Kujira. It started as obviously we started as Orca, and when we built that UI, I remember it was like, oh, there's only kind of 2 RPC calls. We're querying the pools and we're querying your orders. Oh, and maybe your balances are also 3 RPC calls. So it's fine. That's just 3 RPC calls. We'll put that in the UI and we'll call the RPC directly. And then we started the order book, and so now you've got to query your order book and your orders, and suddenly now you want a portfolio page, and this thing just snowballs. And if you look at the network requests for Bo, which is still up, there's something like 500 individual RPC calls that are made to load that page. So kind of making sure we fetch data efficiently and scalably across the app was kind of the number one consideration, and the reason that we have this API. And we've had scaling issues with it, but the fact that we've had like a central location in order to optimize and cache and do all these things has meant that has actually put that kind of performance much more in our control. So maybe we'll just tick through that a bit, which ties into balances quite nicely. So I mean, you guys are all building this already. You've seen Relay. If I take, so let's jump into what are we going to do? Right. So account data. So anytime you want to, like, if you the whole point of this Omnichain thing is that we can load everything about your account in one go. All your limit orders, all your LP positions, all your borrow positions, balances, all that kind of stuff. Relay and the GraphQL allows us to be all kind of declarative over that. So instead of having multiple different kind of like multiple different kind of services on the front end, which might query API 1, API 2, service 3, service 4, whatever. Like, we route everything through, or pretty much everything through the graph and through Relay, so we can manage the kind of that data loading experience in one. So anytime Relay is loading, it'll hit a suspense boundary in React, and we can have a generic kind of like loading state, and you can continually pull that down. So if we go have a look here, right outside the hole, up here somewhere. Where's it gone? Right. So we have a generic suspense boundary here, which wraps all our routes. So anytime you load data through Relay, whether it's a query or you access a preloaded query, it'll hit this suspense by default, which is the kind of the global page loader. But what Relay allows us to do now is it allows us to control how we render these loading states in a more fine-grained way. So if I have a look at what have we got here, probably maybe. So here we have immediately inside Trade, we've got a separate suspense boundary, which actually is just immediately inside this one, but it provides a better fallback. So now we've got a trade-specific skeleton, which is the skeleton loaders for orders and for the order book and all that kind of stuff. And I think even if we go down to the order book somewhere, then we have probably got to use, so by convention, anything that uses a preloaded query. So if you go through this, look at this hook here, it's using a preloaded query, which is a relay hook. But anything where you do a use preloaded from relay, it'll hit the closest suspense boundary. So by convention, any hooks which in turn use a preloaded query, we use preloaded as a prefix to make it clear to consumers that this is going to hit a suspense boundary. And so even each individual item in our order book has its own fallback. So for the order book, we want to display somebody's whether they've got like an open order at that price point, for which we need to preload your account data, but we only need it for that tiny little bit on the left-hand side of the order. We can have a fallback to the item without any understanding of the use data. So this kind of like, I hope this makes sense. That by routing everything through the API, we have a much more consistent and a predictable way of ingesting data. Must be quite nicely over to balances. So balances and Omnichain now. So there's kind of very recurring pattern in Rujira where you have an input, you need to use a balance, and I mean usually you just like we have a current which would just fetch that balance, and I kind of picked it over to the RPC, and we had this sort of batch client for the RPC connector, so we could fire off as many requests as we like, and it would just batch them all up and send them over, which was fine to a degree, but you'd end up with one balance loading before another if the batches became too large and they resolved sequentially. So what the combination of relay and these contexts allow us to do now is create this kind of balance provider. So we just query the user's balances once, provide the addresses in the query. So these are the layer 1 addresses: your EVM address, your Tron address, your XRP address, all your Cosmos addresses, and then the backend will then compile them into this aggregate balance model here. So this is the total balance. This asset here is the canonical asset that we use on the app layer, and these are the individual accounts that you have of representations of the canonical asset. So it'll be like for secured BTC, this will include wrap BTC, it includes CV BTC, etc. And so this where are we now? Got a balance provider here, which is quite nice. So the balance provider is now how we kind of provide this omni-chain experience. So anywhere you have one of those inputs with the multiple different networks and your balances across different networks, all that is this. Where is it? Is somewhere? Okay, right. So it's this balance compact component, which in turn uses the Omni balance from Rujira.ui. This is just a slightly kind of layout with a label on it, but this uses the preloaded balance, which is injected and made available inside this balance provider. So anyone you have a balance provider, which I have a few of them now. Let's say what's a good one here. Let's look at position, shall we? So when you're managing a position, let's do this one here. So you're managing a position, and I've got my two modals here. I've got my repay modal and my increase modal. Repay, I'm concerned with the debt asset, so I create this balance provider, the debt asset. So now inside my repay modal, I don't care. I don't have to know what token this is. I've just got use preloaded balance, and I can fetch that balance. I can do what I like with it. I can stick in this balance compact, and this thing already knows how to fetch my balance. So we don't have to do any prop drilling. Don't have to pass any balances in there. And then we've got this elegantly named TX balance account button, which you basically say this is the amount of the asset that I want to use for this message. And if you haven't got enough inside your balance. It uses this use balance account. And use balance account will either return the balance account that you have available, or it will return a function to call to open, basically to trigger a modal. And then in turn uses use deposit. I mean, and this is all just kind of tucked away, but it all relies on the use of relay and piping everything through the same data pipeline. So really, all kind of everything should just be like super straightforward. You should be able to declare everything with the so if we've got where we've got here, got position, right? So you've got your position fragment. You're declaring the data you need, handling all your loading and animations and everything with suspense, and constructing your message and sending it to transaction button, wherever that's gone now. Yeah, either TX button or well, TX button now really will only be for I guess transactions that don't move funds, like claiming orders or whatever. Anytime you need funds, use this. I mean, maybe actually we stick required in as a optional parameter to TX button, and if it's present, then it becomes like a balance account button. Yeah, I mean, sorry, this is quite unscripted, and I haven't got a huge amount to demonstrate. But if anybody should just do a Q&A or whatever, because I'm sure that yeah, let's do that.
Perhaps one thing before we go into the Q&A, what I always found helpful and figured out thanks to Matteo is where can you like write some GraphQL queries on to see the output of the data, or to see what parameters are available, like if you're just a front-end dev, perhaps.
Oh yeah, so that's all documented here. To you, I'll just share it from screen. Pop it in. Share. Yeah, right. So this is just everything is typed and documented through the graph, and you can just browse through it, see what is available, what nodes are available, what fields on them. So you know, got its strategies. Strategy is quite nice. It's like a sort of polymorphic interface, and actually strategies is basically the same as the as your Bow index page, which just had the most insane number of RPC calls. So this is, I think, where we get the most benefit out of using the graph, because we can just flatten it all, and you can page through it. You can sort it, you can filter it. Where on like you just can't do that with a direct RPC call, because you have to query every single pool, query the prices of each of the assets, query the balances of each of the assets. Your balance, if you want to filter it by pools that I have a deposit in, or sort it by TVL or whatever, like you have to load every single pool if you're going to do it in the front end. But here we can load it once, cache it, and serve nicely sorted page lists. So note here we've got multiple different strategies. First of all, anyway, yeah, and then you can just play around with it and test out queries and subscriptions as well. Try to be quite generic with subscriptions. So you've got Node and Edge, which I think are kind of the most commonly used ones, particularly Node. In order filter are unique, distinct. Not sure the perps. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's all documented, and if anything's not documented, it's it's all just in line inside the API. So contributions obviously welcome to help support all of this.
Nice. Okay, and then I think the last thing that I've seen and also experienced sometimes, I mean, Matteo will spin up a new branch, or you, because there's a new feature that I'm working on. Now there were some changes. Is it still as easy as pulling the API and running it with the correct flag locally, so like have your own network, or is it a bit more complex or Dockerized or whatever, like running the API yourself at the correct branch?
Yeah, it's Dockerized now. So the API has two applications inside it. It's got the web component and it's got the indexer component, and they also have a lot of shared business logic. And so you can, if you've got like a local database running, you can just run the Rujira web application without Docker or without any of that kind of stuff. You just CD into apps, Rujira web, and it makes PHX server, and it will start the web component. So you won't have any candles, you won't have any charts, trade history, any of that, but you will have access to kind of live current blockchain data. So for a lot of integrations, that will do you. Otherwise you can just connect to the StageNet or the mainnet API.
Nice. Okay. Thanks.